Hello, today I'm talking about SQL injection. So here's the website that we're going to be looking at. Here is the PHP for that website. Just an insert PHP program that the main website calls. And here's where we can look at various changes in the database. So looking at the website, the main website first, you can see here we're logging into the database as this user. And this is the first problem because this user has full access to everything, where they really only need to be able to insert new data because that's the only thing they can do from this website. So that's all they should be allowed to do. They shouldn't be allowed to do anything else. So the permissions on the user that we're logged into should be different. And down here, we call insert. And most things are happening in this program because you can see here, we're actually making the SQL query. So the biggest problem here is that we're making it by just putting strings together from user input. So we're writing this string and then we're just adding in whatever the user wants to put in. So the user can put in whatever they want and it's just going to get converted straight to SQL. So they can run essentially whatever they want in SQL with full administrative privileges because that's the user that we're logged in as. So the way this should really be done is using SQL prepared statements so that these are all passed as parameters in an SQL program. And then SQL will never treat it as like SQL actual code that should be run. It'll know that it's like just a string and it will treat it as a string. So looking at something that we can do here, we just put in whatever information we want. Submit this. You see here, this is showing us what the SQL statement is. It's all this. Then if we want to, like, see here we're inserting into patients, and that's all we're supposed to be able to insert into because we weren't allowed to choose which table we wanted to insert into. But here in the URL, see table equals patients, and I can just change that to whatever I want. And then from there, I know that the SQL statement is going to be insert into locations because that's the way it would need to be built for this to work. And you can see it right here, in fact. So insert into locations, and I can pick whatever I want to define for location. So I can say location ID, because that's required, and mandatory masks. I could put in more fields from locations if I wanted to. I could just complete the SQL statement right in the URL. Like that. 7, 1. I can just comment out everything else. That's what these two dashes are. Because there's all this other stuff after, but here I'm just commenting out everything else so that this runs properly. So I can just hit enter on that. We'll run this. You can see insert into locations. This, go back. Can't tell that anything's changed because you're not even supposed to be able to look at locations. If we go here, go to locations, and see that this has actually been added to the database. Now, one way this could be prevented is if the SQL, like the fields that we're passing to SQL and PHP, weren't actually in the URL, then we wouldn't be able to do that because there's nowhere to put in table. So it would be harder to mess with different tables. Another thing to point out is here have MySQLi query. If this was MySQLi multi-query, then we could do essentially whatever we wanted because you can just end one SQL statement and start another, which means that we could just delete the entire database, get everything from the entire database, whatever we want to do, because we can write a complete SQL statement of whatever we want.